And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Dhanshri Moore. Dhanshri is a principal cloud solution architect at Microsoft. And she's a deep learning enthusiast with professional experience in data science and machine learning. At Microsoft, she is responsible for driving high priority customer initiatives on Azure data and AI platform and providing end-to-end technical guidance and expertise to accelerate healthcare customers' digital transformation journey. So with that, Dhanshri, I can see your screen share coming through here, and I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
Thank you, Matt. And after referencing the mother of all demo, I think I feel the pressure to deliver.
Well,
and
at
just
least you
for
don't
the
have 90 minutes that you have to
yeah.
fill.
So I want to keep this interactive. So anyone, if you have any question or if you want to go a little bit deeper on all these different solution patterns that I will be discussing about, feel free to put it on the chat. Matt, feel free to ask that question in between as well, or come off mute and ask that question. So I want this session to be interactive. So with that, it is action packed with all those demos. So I'll start with the very simple demo, like, starting with the Azure OpenAI playground itself. Let me bring up my playground here. So there is this concept like studio that we are actually bringing up for all our AI services. And here you can see I'm in my AI studio. I logged in with my credentials. And you have two options here. One is completion model. Those are, your GPT-3 or, lower model like Ada, Babbage, Dhanshri type of code. And then chat-based model where you can see uh, GPT 3.5, GPT 335 Turbo, as well as GPT-4. They are more message goes in, message come out type of models. So they are in the chat playground. So just pure out of the box, I started asking the question, what is metformin? And it has given me the answer that metformin is a medication used to treat type 2 diabetes. And it has given me further more information. So what it shows you is really, it has that ability to understand medical natural language as well as comprehend on top of that. So I asked the follow-up question, can anyone with type 2 diabetes take it? Or I can also ask, like, is there any alternatives? So this is just to show you, like, how you can interact with these type of models, and there is no training that is done on top of, any, like, on your own data type. This is something that is coming directly off from the out of the box, like the vanilla solution that we have. So this is just to simply, start with. But then how about you have, let's say, very long document, and you want to ask question on top of that document. So I will first show you the demo, and I will then talk about the architecture or, kind of the solution pattern that went into that. So this is like, I simply just converted this document on your own data. Few of you were asking the question about it. We'll talk about this pattern, but I just converted that into PDF. And then here you can see I'm asking question on that data itself. So simply, like, this is multi-page PDF document. I'm asking to summarize Azure OpenAI on your data feature. So it is looking at the document that I submitted as a context, and it is giving me the summary. By the way, yes, you can also ask to summarize in other languages as well. As you can see, I have asked in Spanish as well as I asked to summarize in Hindi. I will just like read a very small snippet that it is actually doing that. It is understanding different languages and also like doing that translation for you again out of the box. So here in Hindi, Microsoft द्वारा विकसित Azure OpenAI on your own data, आपको अपने data पर समर्पित chat model जैसे, like, other models, it can help you understand that data. So these different demos to show you like all these different features and functionality. I know there is a debate between, like, whether you want to use this OpenAI's feature to do the translation, or Azure also have Azure translation service. So in my, when I'll show you the architecture, I will also talk about some of the differences and nuances, how and when you should choose, let's say, dedicated translation service versus something that is coming as out of the box from OpenAI. So just to go back into what is happening behind the scene for those two demos, the very first demo that I showed, which is you can simply upload the document. You can use some of the basic model, such as let's say GPT 3.5 or Text Dhanshri. The prompt, the way you interact with model is prompt. You can ask summarize this call or summarize this document, or find the intent. So you can pretty much explain anything that you want to do, and OpenAI will go ahead and it will perform that task that you have asked in that prompt. So document goes in as context, then the way you interact with model is via prompt, and then you get the result out. In this case, it's summary. But I also mentioned, how about you have very large documents? So the way to handle those large document is actually you will do the chunking. So you will just create a smaller chunk. The reason you want to create the smaller chunk is because all these different OpenAI models, they have something called token limits. Token limit is the tokens that you send in as part of your prompt, the context that goes in as part of the prompt, and the output that you get. It's a combination of all these three different things, and sometimes you also get the system messages and so on. All of them need to fit within the token size, and that's the reason you need to do the chunking. I'll come back to the form recognizer, but here I want you to focus on this portion where the document, I'm doing the smaller chunk, like section 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Then I'm asking OpenAI to summarize all these different chunks. And then you can actually combine the summary, or you can ask OpenAI to combine this summary to get the final summary, the way I showed in the demo. How about your data is, let's say, unstructured data? Think about there are many payer as well as provider, they get these medical claims in terms of faxes. And sometimes that can be, just like simple image of your claim data that get faxed. So if you have those type of scenarios, that's where you will need something which can do the intelligent optical character recognition, and also maybe extracting some of the named entity pair, understanding what is is there any table structure within that documentation and so on. So that's where you can use Form Recognizer, which is another AI service that we have on Azure, which can help you extract that OCR and then named value pair and so on. Once you have that OCR, that is the data that you will send in this pattern, which is again, you'll do chunking and then do the summarization and combining the summary. But that is how you can handle your structure as well as unstructured, very large documents. I'll take a quick pause before I go into another solution pattern. Any questions so far?
Yeah, Dhanshri, there's one that came up in chat asking about when following this pattern, what is the loss on each summary and the combination at the end? Can you talk a little bit about kind of going through this model and what's lost or what's focused on in that summarization?
All right. So first thing, Azure OpenAI, when you ask it to do the summary, it try to understand what is most relevant information in that piece of text, and then it has to reduce not get everything, but just whatever has the better correlation with the most important output. That is what is coming out as a summary. By the way, there is also some sort of loss that can happen because sometimes you have certain context with coming from, let's say, page 1 of the document going into page 2 of the document. So if you're doing, let's say, chunking of the document based on, let's say, page 1, page 2, page 3, that is where it may be a little bit hard to follow the context. So I have seen some people, what they do is they do kind of the sliding window type of concept. So maybe extra paragraph on the first page goes in the first chunk itself, and then the, let's say, last paragraph of the first page goes into the second chunk itself. So you have that kind of the sliding window type of functionality just to maintain the context, if at all that is important to you. Hope that
Great.
answers the question. All right.
Yeah, I think it helps. And I'll say you touched on a couple of the questions just naturally as you were going through it. There was a question that had come up around the chunking of the data and responsibility. You know, where does that actually fall? So you were able to address that. There was also just a confirmation question that someone had asked that these models have data. The base models have data from their internet training. And then they wanted to confirm they can also ingest company documents and
Yeah.
provide results in addition to that. So,
Well, that is very timely question, I'll say, because that is the exact demo that I'm going to do right now. So
excellent.
how about I have seen many organizations, they have their own like huge knowledge repository, and they want to have that chat type of functionality on that repository, or even just like, find out some of the insights from that repository. So this is the pattern for you, which is doing this chat GPT on your data, on your enterprise data. So now I will, in this case, I'll first actually go through how the architecture look like, and then I will do the demonstration about this. So again, think about like you have this huge document repository. It can be on, let's say, OneDrive, SharePoint. It can have PDF, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, as well as, like your data is stored on SQL databases, or even the NoSQL database like Cosmos DB. So think about, like all that type of data coming in as part of your document repository. Then we did discuss, let's say, if there is like uh, unstructured data, like a lot of image type of data that you have, you can use form recognizer. We discuss about the chunking logic. So the first part of the architecture looks very similar to what I showed you before, like, you'll do the chunking so that you can handle those token limits. But then now I just want to, focus upon like, how you can actually retrieve that data from your knowledge repository, augment that within your Azure OpenAI service, so that now your Azure OpenAI service will answer questions on top of your data, not from the public internet. So you will have any of, let's say, front-end application. User will ask any question. First thing that happened is because Azure Cognitive Search has gone through all this document repository and already created that index data. So OpenAI first convert that search query into what it should be searching in this index data with help of cognitive search. Then cognitive search will give you the top n relevant result, and you can also address, like, do you want top 3, do you want top 5, 10, or so on. So those relevant sections are like, because of Azure Cognitive Search, you will get those top relevant sections. That those goes as like the context within the prompt, and then your original query, and this goes as a context to OpenAI. OpenAI will comprehend on top of the data that you retrieve from your knowledge repository, the very relevant data, and then it will answer your question on top of that data. So this is I'll say, like, at a very high level, this is how the architecture look like. I will show the demo, so like you can actually just connect the dot how it will be relevant for your use case or for your organization. So I'm going to flip back to my demo section. Here I'm actually um, pointing to all the HR type of data, all health benefit plans related data. So the first question I ask on this ChatGPT GPT Plus enterprise data demo is, what is included in my Northwind Plus plan? And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can actually see. So what is included in my Northwind Plus plan that is not in standard? So OpenAI understand that there is like comparison that need to happen. And now it is looking back into your knowledge repository, and also look here, like you are also getting the citation. So it generated this output, but at the same time, it is also telling you where it is getting that data. That is the source of truth. It is the, like the, this is the PDF that is coming from your knowledge repository. And here you can, let's say, if you want to go and actually make sure like all the data that is getting out of OpenAI, it's the right data, you can actually look at that citation. You can also look at supporting contents, like where all it find that information, as well as in this case, thought process. This is more like, the developer persona. When they are doing that experimentation, they want to know, like, how it is coming up to this answer, so that, like if they want to try multiple different prompts, they can do so. And by the way, Azure Machine Learning also have the prompt flow feature that we released during build. So you can actually try multiple prompt, which can, like make more sense to you, which will give you better result and so on. So that is like, how you can actually ground OpenAI result on top of your data. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and I already asked, so I'll show you some of these example. So I ask, I have plus plan, does it cover iExam? And it gave me the information along with the citation. I'm going to ask one more question. How about hearing? uh, just this question in itself, how about hearing, doesn't mean anything. But the reason is it is giving you answer is because it is maintaining the context within the session. So it knows that I was talking about, I already have the plus plan. I was talking about the eye exam. When I ask how about hearing, so it actually understood that I might be asking about hearing exam that is covered, is that covered in the plus plan, and the coverage is, like it was discussed before. So that's the reason it is coming back with the relevant information and with the relevant citation. So that's the part of, like grounding on top of your own data. I'll take a quick pause for any questions on this.
Yeah, great. So there are a couple of questions that were related to each other around what you're just showing here around if they have a customer has a large number of files or documents that they're using through cognitive search, or perhaps large file sizes. Are there considerations or limitations that they should be thinking about around the volume of files, when to use cognitive search, and if there are any specific limitations on the size of files?
Yeah, so I will say there is not specific limitation on the size of the file because, I mean, if it is longer file, I have showed you like, how we are doing the chunking logic and whatnot. There is also supported file format that is like out of the box, but I have seen, like it has very long list of supported, even the JSON, XML, HTML, and so on. So I don't think like you will face any limitation there. In case if you do, you can also create the custom connectors to cognitive search. So then you can actually point to all your data repository to this cognitive search. This is the one who is doing that heavy lifting. Like even if you have petabyte size of the data, um, it is already indexed with cognitive search. So this is the one who is doing that retrieval in that retrieval augmented generation pattern. That is the RAG pattern that is like, very famous even in the open source community out there. So that retrieval is what is helping you to ground that data. So I'll say like, because we are also doing the chunking, so there should not be any issue on the large files as well.
Great.
There is one more pattern that I want to showcase because, like this is the question that I got many times. So this is about the retrieval pattern. How about we want to see some of the vector embedding. So I'm going to talk about that pattern, and then I will take any questions on both of these patterns. So I'm going to flip back to my slides here. So you can see the overall architecture is almost similar, like, you're connecting to your repository, doing the chunking. The only difference that is here is instead of cognitive search, we are actually doing the embedding with help of OpenAI's embedding model. And we are storing all those embeddings into vector database. Now, what embeddings are? It's basically just the vector representation in multi-dimension. So it is a little bit beyond like human comprehension because we are like very used to of 3D, three-dimension, like the imagination. So this is like multi-dimensional vector space representation of your text. So that is, this is basically nothing but just like, bunch of numbers. So you can store that in any of the vector database. And then whenever user asks any question, and just forget about this transition for a minute. So whenever user asks any question, that query itself is embedded with help of, again, the similar model. Then that embedding get looked up into vector database to find the um, k nearest neighbor or n nearest neighbor. And then here it is giving me the end relevant section that goes as an input to the prompt to GPT-3, 3.5 or GPT-4 model, choice is yours. And then it will look at the question, then it will look at the context, and then it will do the task. Like in this case, let's say you ask for the summarization or you ask specific question. What is the comparison between, two plans for the health benefit? And it is generating that answer for you. One extra step that is happening in this case is if you have to support multiple different languages, this is the experimentation that I will suggest. Either check how out of the box functionality with the OpenAI models are working for your translation. If that is not giving you the better outcome, then you can use Azure's AI translator functionality first to translate that question, and also once you get the result, you can translate that back into the desired language. So this is the second pattern. And by the way, we are actually combining these two patterns together. So during build, when we mentioned, we are bringing the previous pattern, which is rack pattern, as part of the feature on your own data. This will also be, currently this is in private preview, but this will also be, you can actually combine your embedding as well as the previous pattern, which is, you're just doing the indexing, so that you can actually do that hybrid search, which will give you much more better result. But yeah, these are the three different options that are available for doing using Azure OpenAI on top of your own data. Any questions so far? I'm gonna see if there are any questions on the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot in there as far as questions. There is one that was open. It had come, I think, during the last pattern that you were showing, but it was, does this maintain state or context between prompts, or does it replay all prompts again and adds the new ones each time?
Yeah, so just OpenAI, if you just look at the model in itself, it is not session aware. The reason, and you have seen in my demo, it is maintaining that context. The reason being, every time I'm actually this question that goes into the model, the other this history about what happened in that conversation, that also goes in the prompt. And that's the reason it is it is aware, it is session aware. Just the model in itself is not session aware, but because it is message goes in, message come out. If you're providing what happened in the history, yes, I mean, it will be able to comprehend on top of that data to make sense of the newer query. Hope that makes sense.
I think so. And I know I've seen other demos of this where kind of that session history is persisted in a data store as well. So you can kind of go back and continue conversations, later on, or switch between those conversations and being able to bring them. Exactly. Another question that came up in the context of vector search, what to do if the vector search returns a large data set and hits the token size of the OpenAI limitation?
Okay, so here you are that is actually depending upon how large you are doing the session. And this is also part of the experimentation, you have to do the experimentation on what is on average size of the outcome, because the token limit is input plus your system prompt plus output. So you will do that study, and if you're not handling it here, then it will end up giving you the error, and then you have to do the kind of error handling logic to further chunk that data. Also, second option that you have available here is how many top and relevant sections that you are choosing. Again, based on how you're doing chunking here, you can change some of the sizing so that it will fit within the limitation. But yeah, error handling and then handling it way before the error happened. Those two are the options that you have.
Okay, and then one more question around this, and you'll have about 20 minutes left from a time in your session perspective. But what is the lifespan of an embedding?
Lifespan. I didn't get the question. If you want to come up mute.
Yeah, there wasn't more context provided here, but my presumption is that in this embedding pattern, does that embedding is it intended to live on forever, and be have those embeddings referenced again and again, or are those destroyed at some point in this pattern?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take like kind of real world example. Let's say I have that call center scenario, and I'm using this pattern to support that call representative to find that information much more quicker. So let's say I have, let's say, 10 documents, just for the assumption sake. Um, Two of these documents have now the newer version, newer guidance for that call center representative. So you can actually have, let's say, like a trigger, you get the newer files, you replace the older ones with the new ones. So that is the option that is available. Or you can also keep the, like everything. So it is totally up to you. Also, like, the vector database size also matters, because, um, that is where you will, like, the more data that you store in that embedding, like, you may end up paying more. So that is also another thing, like, how you want to retire that, those embeddings. So it is like totally up to you, I'll say. But what I have seen is, generally it live for the duration of the project, unless there is like the newer version of that document come in that replace the, older embedding with the new ones, and you can kick it off with the, kind of event based triggers and so on. Or, like, you want to just empty that data, and then, redo for, let's say you got the newer model and you want to redo those embedding. So that may be another reason, but it can live pretty much, till you want to keep it.
Excellent. All right, I'm gonna say
Okay.
go ahead and continue on. You're at about just under 20 minutes left until we hit our first break of the day.
All right, sounds good. So I do have just two more patterns remaining, and then I will just open it up for open mic Q&A. So the next pattern that I have is call center scenario, where and many of you already have that call center where there is a conversation that is happening between the caller and call center representative. You can store all that data from the telephony server to Azure storage, and considering, like, those are all the audio files, let's say the WAV files. Uh, Before you send it to OpenAI to do anything on top of that data, OpenAI need that text information at this moment. So you have to translate that audio file into text file. So the AI service that we have is speech to text service that can help you convert that audio file into text file. And by the way, it can also handle multiple different languages also. If your audio is coming in, let's say, Spanish, French, or any other language, then that text can then go into OpenAI to, let's say, summarize this call, or what was the intent for this call, or how you did this resolution for this call. So these can be different prompts that can go in. And it can also help you, like, oh, how the sentiment was happening throughout that call. So how was the conversation trends, and what are some of the insights that you can then plug it back into your Power BI insights, or back into your CRM system. You're using a Microsoft CRM system, or even any other. I worked with one of the customer where they are putting this transcription back into Salesforce database, or Salesforce CRM system. So yes, you can pretty much use OpenAI on Azure, but then you want to put that history or summary or any insights back into any of the other system, you can pretty much do so. So I'm going to do like a quick demonstration for this pattern. So I'm in my speech studio. I'm going to play a quick audio. Actually, before that, I'm going to reshare my screen so that I can share my audio. Okay, so it is saying you cannot share device audio. So I will say, like, oops, sorry about this. Okay, so because I'll not be able to share the audio. Basically, this is like the conversation that is happening between that call center call representative, pharmacist, and patient. And you can actually look at the transcription here. So again, I'm using my speech studio, and I'm using speech to text first to convert that audio into text data. And I just wanted to call out a couple other features of this pattern also. Like, you can also do the sentiment analysis throughout the call, like how your sentiment before, like at the start of the call, at the end of the call, and so on. So you can track those. This is important for healthcare industry where you can actually, we have this another AI offering which can detect PII data. If you want to mask it, anonymize it, you can pretty much do anything with that data. Most of the time, we generally recommend like once you get that transcript, you mask that data so that PII information doesn't flow throughout the like uh, other services or other part of the architecture. That is just like one way of handling of that PII data. So what I'm going to do is, this is the you get that text output. I'm going to put that back into my Azure OpenAI, and simple prompt that I'm going to do is like summarize this call. So I already copied this, and let me and I'm using like just for the demonstration purpose, I'm just using like simple DaVinci based models. On the right hand side, you can see some of the parameters that you can change. So temperature is basically the randomness, or like be more creative or be less creative, try to extract information from your context only. Here you can also set like what all some of the tokens limit that you want to set on each of these calls. So these are some of the parameters that you have, so that you can play with this and you can see what works better for your scenario. So again, coming back to the demo here, like all my instructions are like find top intent and summarize this call, and the transcript is basically the outcome of speech to text offering here. So you can see like it has generated the intent. Intent is refill a prescription, and then it has just generated that summary. So that is like a simple way of like how you can use Azure OpenAI for that call center type of scenario. Any I'll take a quick pause. Any questions on this pattern?
There haven't been any that have come up in chat.
All right, awesome. So the next pattern.
There is a hand that was raised. Let me see if I can get
Ashok,
a
I
shock
see. If
off
feel free
of.
to come off mute.
Yep, I just allowed the mic for you, Ashok, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
With the limited amount of experience that I have with text to speech, simple my interaction is going through Amazon Alexa. You change the country to India, with an Indian accent, you have a different kind of experience that you have. You change the country to US, it'll have it's a different algorithm, I guess, which is used to decipher the text. So when people are interacting with the call center and they're recording, you get people from different geographies with different accents. And what is the level of accuracy with regards to text to speech, because it's not curated to one accent. And the challenge is, how does it pick the context, in giving any kind of business intelligence sort of thing.
Yeah, so Ashok, while you are like explaining that question, I just did with Azure speech offering. I just did like open up the real-time speech to text, and you can see like when you were talking, it was able to not only just understand different language and intonations and the way like let's say Indian people talk versus like other nationality and so on. So it has trained on very comprehensive data, and yes, I mean you can actually choose between like multiple different languages as well, but even the English is that is the that is the, I'll say, like the biggest data set that they have trained on. Like it is able to pick up like all these different accents and so on. So that's a quick just demonstration of this. By the way, I have also done this speech to text for another customer of mine, and they have a lot of medical speech type of data, because they are pharmacy. They need to understand all these different drugs, and like specific that specific organization specific uh, nomenclature, I'll say. So what you can do is you also have that functionality where you can customize the speech model. Here. Yeah, customizing. Give me a second. Yeah, customize speech. So you can actually, with customization, you can also train this model for, let's say, specific drugs, or like, I have one customer where Aetna is a health insurance company, and Edna, EDNA, is a first name. So sometimes it was actually doing that confusion, but because we do have that customization of the speech, you can actually just like, train with some of those specific data. So then the model can become much more better for, your organization need than, the generic one. And again, like we have also tested against other cloud also, and yeah, we have seen, like the really, really good result. And you also saw like, that real-time speech transcription. I hope
And
that answer your question.
yeah, and if I can tag on a couple of things, a good healthcare specific reference to using some of this, specified models and fine tuning is around the capabilities that Nuance brings to the table. Some of their products leverage these speech to text capabilities as well as specific models that are, help bring things like Dragon Medical One, very, very close to how a physician speaks. And they also have fine-tuned that across different accents and organizations, even within medical domain for that. So an example of bringing that through. Another comment, around using some of these tools together or being able to chain them together is using something like a GPT model and an appropriate prompt for it to analyze the output of a speech to text model and identify where there might be issues with it or errors with it, kind of like almost a meta analysis of the speech to text. The raw speech to text on its own is another one of those conversations that's come up.
Yeah, and I see one more question. So if enterprise uses a different contact center provider like Genesys, how would we get call recording from AWS where they are stored into this model? Are we able to point to a different provider? So I'm going to go back to my slide here. I have actually like another customer who I can reference where they were using Genesys. Genesys is doing the transcription. So, like till here is something that, they own or managed, like maybe other cloud as well, but they want to utilize OpenAI's functionality. And the Azure OpenAI service, as Javier mentioned before, this is like, like it has REST endpoints and SDK. This can be used as standalone also. So let's say if you have a portion of this architecture and you just want to utilize Azure OpenAI, it is as simple as, like plug and play. You send those summary as context, the way I have showed you in my demo, to OpenAI, get the summary. And once you have that summary, you can put that summary back into, like wherever you're putting that summary or the intent for the call or insights, in any other like tool, or like if you want to use Power BI or our CRM system. Yes, it is all these different all these different services that you see. It's like more like plug and play for your need. While I will definitely suggest give a try for Azure Space Services, but this is something that you can do like, phase one, start with Azure OpenAI and then expand with, like Azure Speech Services, and then the end-to-end solution scenario that we are offering you here. Hope that helps answer question. Any other question? Okay,
Not a
which
question,
option
but
is
just a time check for you. About 5 minutes remaining before we get to the break. We'll have a little flexibility since it is a break, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, so I'm almost at the end. I'll again open up for the open mic, but this is just the last pattern where there is like a lot of document processing that need to happen. You have that PDF claims type of data that is coming in. You can use form recognizer, cognitive search. This is almost pretty much same pattern that we have seen, but then you can extract, let's say, now I was doing this prior authorization use case where we are extracting, okay, like what is the name, date of birth, BMI, what is the reason for the surgery, and so on. So you already have that question set with you. So that is where you can actually like use Azure OpenAI to get that answer, keep that answer ready, and then like put it into your any of the front end application, like let's say prior authorization application and so on. So instead of on the fly, the way that I have showed you before, you can actually like do the batch processing, get the answers from OpenAI, store it back into your Cosmos DB, and then like serve it through that front end application layer, or even the reporting or visualization layer out there. So that's the last pattern that I want to showcase, and we will send out this slide. So here are some of the learning guide for you, even if you're starting very new, or if you're already like more into the advanced stages. There is a lot of curated content out there that you can start using for your learning purpose. And with that, I will open up the mic for any last, I'll take like 1 or 2 questions based on the time.
So I'm scanning the chat. There is a question which I don't know is something we can necessarily answer here. It's comparing 2 options and trying to identify which approach may be cheaper from an Azure cost perspective. Those usually come with a bunch of maybes and what ifs and those sorts of things. So maybe not going to take that one into chat, but if the question asker would like to follow up through either the form, the form submission, we can certainly get back to you, or in the at the end of the session, there will be a review where you can ask for specific, kind of follow up and that sort of thing. That would be a great venue to be able to do that. We do have a hand raised here. I'm going to go ahead, Naeem, allow your mic, and if you have a question, go ahead. I said allow, but it didn't let through. Your mic is loud, so if you go ahead and unmute yourself, Naeem, you should be able to ask your question.
Now I'm okay.
There
Can you hear me now? Good.
Yes.
So my question is, if I want to train the LLM, what they call GPT model, with my data, so I send the embeddings. So my embeddings will be just only handful, where LLM already has billions of parameters pre-trained. How significant that change would be? Because
Yes.
I'm just sending maybe one small PDF. At that point, what value it will add? Because we are comparing with 5 parameter new one as compared to 175 billion. So what's significance?
Yeah. So the pattern that I was showing, bringing your own data, it is not changing any of the, I'll say, weights and biases in that model. It is using the same model, but it just like, what we are telling model is like basically just ground on this data. So I'll show you like, this is the new feature that we have. You can add your own data, and here is that check mark, like, do you want to limit the responses only on your data? But let's say what I'm hearing from your scenario is I have that content, but it is very like, limited content. I want to give that ability for that front end user to also get the answers from, like its own knowledge also. So let's say if I ask what all AI offerings that Azure AI has, if I'm doing the grounding, with the grounding, it will not be able to give that data, that information, because that information is not in the repository. So the way to solve that problem is like, you can actually allow OpenAI's ability to also like, get the answers from its own knowledge base. That is where, like you're using best of both worlds. You're also grounding for any relevant information, but then you're opening for, like answer any other like generic questions that it may answer in like, the previous demo that I showed you, like very generic demo that I showed you. It will do everything that this does, but at the same time, wherever there is relevant information found in your data repository, it will use that data repository.
So in this case, basically, we are not really training it. We're sending data, and the pre-trained model which doesn't really, it hasn't been trained on this one. So we are still based on the 2 years old model definition applying to the new data set. So that's
First,
correct.
yeah, I mean, in a way that is correct, but just I'll say, like, because you said, like, 2 year old, there is also plugins that are available. Plugins can allow you to use, let's say, Bing API, your cognitive search API, SQL databases, Cosmos DB, and so on. So by using that Bing API, you can actually get, like, let's say, what is temperature right now. It will divert it to Bing API, get that information from public internet, and show you within this, wherever there is grounding, like, relevant information found in grounding, it can use that data. So your solution, here, like I was showing, this architecture, you are in control. Like, you can say, this is the grounding, but here in the application layer, you can say, oh, like, enable the Bing plugin for OpenAI, and then it will know everything that, like public internet knows, like very recent information. So yes, there are different patterns that you can pretty much use. Hope that makes sense.
Yep, and I know we are just up to time on our break here, but I will put in a bit of a plug for some of the sessions that we have coming up this afternoon in Central Time Zone anyway. We have some great examples of more advanced uses of groundings, using specific use cases of applying these models in the context of things that people are doing. So some really exciting things coming up as we proceed through the day. Dhanshri, I'd like to thank you for your many demos that you did. It seemed to compete with the mother of all demos. Anybody who's actually watched that knows it is a bit dry. This is a lot less dry, so thank you for that.